You are a relatively brand new programmer at Sony PlayStation. What are you doing there? Not specifically like what game or what thing, but are you at a high level? Are you a gameplay programmer? Are you an engine programmer? What do you do?
I'm a gameplay programmer, and I mainly work on like 3Cs.
PCs.
3Cs, like camera control characters.
Oh, I'd never heard that term. Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. So you are a gameplay guy, which means
Yes.
that you could make your own game in Unreal with a couple of people without breaking a sweat. But you've chosen to go into the mega machine that is AAA video games, and I'm fascinated and curious why.
Firstly, yeah, I love my job, and I would love doing it in either situation. But there are some things about.
Well, hang on. You love your job, meaning you love being a programmer, or you love your job at Sony?
No, like as a gameplay, I love being a gameplay programmer. That's what I meant. I would love doing it in either situation, right?
Okay.
But there's something amazing about working in like a big team where the thing we're making is so much more than like the individual parts that we're putting into it. And I honestly, even though maybe I've thought about this, but I think I appreciate a lot more the process than like the final product itself. I just actually love what we're doing, right? Like the mix of and specifically what we get being at a big company is the being able to use the highest technology, and even us, the code that we're writing, it's very high tech, and like it's not stuff that we would do the same at an indie company.
No, I totally. If you're talking about the process being the main motivator,
exactly.
I get that. Let me ask you, how long have you been doing it?
It's been like 3 years now.
Have you shipped a game yet?
Yes.
Have you had to crunch?
Yes.
When you laugh about that, I mean, is it like bad crunch, or you mean just
no, not bad. Honestly, from what I heard about how it was before, definitely not as bad. But honestly, I laugh about it also because I'm young, so I don't even mind it. I actually do really love what I'm doing. So when it got to that point and we just needed to get stuff done, I was like, yeah, let's get stuff done. But I understand that people, some people value more their work-life balance and things like that, and I get that perspective. But I think this is how it gets made.
Right. So when it's great you're calling in, and great you have that experience, because that was my experience back in the day when I worked on games, which was, if you want to be the big dog, you've got to fucking put the time in. I mean, that hasn't changed, is what you're saying, correct?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about when you hear all these press people going on about, crunch and it's bad and blah, blah, blah? What do you think about that?
I think there's some misconception about, like, making a game is not the same as like making a building, right? Like if you're doing a building, you can plan everything in advance and try to make it so that the workload is balanced throughout, because everything is kind of predictable. But when you're making a game, so much of it kind of emerges as you're doing it, even though obviously good directors and all of that stuff would make it so that you have some sort of guiding star or something like that. But so much of it emerges as we're doing it, and also it's very expensive and takes a lot of time, and at some point you do have to ship it, and you kind of like, you got to get it to the point that people will be actually appreciate it. But
Right. So I know I'm with you 1,000% on that. I think that makes total sense. Let me ask you one more question, because I get this. To that though, I was gonna say, it drives me nuts when they say, "Oh, it's just bad management," and it's like, well, management can only do. I'm not saying that's not true sometimes, but yeah, like you said, when you're making a game, you don't really know where you're going until you get there sometimes. And so management you can manage for that to some degree, but I mean, it's hard when you discover fun. It's like discovering gold. You don't want to just go home and go, well, we got enough gold. It's like, no, we got to make this work.
It's when you find that those few things and you're like, okay, this is special and we got to push it to the limit. You got to polish it. You got to make it ready. So yeah, sometimes you kind of find out about something and you want to we all put our effort together to get it to a certain level of quality. Definitely.
Okay, I have two more quick questions. I hear a lot, and here's my logic. Tell me if this holds from an actual programmer. Another thing I hear in the press a lot that drives me batshit is like unionization. Now, I like unions. I think unions are important. I would have no problem if the video game industry unionized, although it would raise prices, blah, blah, blah. But my argument against it, that it's never going to happen, at least unless there's some weird fundamental change, as people like you, programmers, high-end level people who make a lot of money, that are well-trained, you guys can kind of write your own ticket, just like I could back in the day, in terms of, you know, what your salary is and bonuses, and you can go to 20 other companies. Why would you agree that it would be really difficult to get the kind of the programmer top folks and the producers, designers, artists, top folks to agree to a union, or am I wrong about that?
That's interesting. I've got to say I didn't really think about that before, but I do agree that there, like, you know, when I'm listening to you sometimes and we're talking about how games are getting too expensive and things like that, and I am thinking, yeah, actually, especially us programmers, it's a lot of money, and it's because games are getting to reach such a high level of like production quality. That's what people expect today, that, you know, this stuff doesn't just happen by itself. We gotta make it, and it's very complicated. And so when you start needing even meet, like, and it's like, you know, us as programmers too, I'm not doing this for the money. Like, I could go program in a completely different industry and make a lot more money. I'm here like in games because I love what I'm doing. Like, it's really because it uses up all of the skills that I've developed. Like, as I love math, I love programming, I love getting the feeling of stuff in games right. So
would you and many of your colleagues, do you feel you guys would risk losing your jobs if it meant the QA department and the really junior folks on teams would get a little bit more of the pie, or treated in a way that, you know, they would like to be treated more than they currently are? Do you think that because that's the only way they're ever going to have leverage?
If I had to like answer by gut feeling, I would say no.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm saying that I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. Final question, because you're a Sony PlayStation guy. Where do you know this idea that Sony is, and you've shipped a game with them, and I know you don't want to say which game, and I appreciate that. This idea that a lot of these people in the gaming fandom have, that Sony is from on high saying, make woke stuff, make stuff LGBT and pro-black and pro-Muslim and pro-Jew, and let's anti-white, any or all of that stuff. How much of that do you think, or have you found to be your experience, or the experience of people that you work with that make those creative decisions on the teams you work on?
Yes, well, I'll first preface by saying I'm like very not involved in any of that, but from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like that's happening at all. It's just like, people gotta realize that in any creative industry, this is just a reflection of the people that are writing it. And as you kind of said earlier, a lot of this writing, specifically today in games, is not done by like one main guy who's in charge of everything. It's people like it's a big team usually, especially in narrative-focused games. There'll be a lot of writers in there, and obviously they have a direction and they kind of like work towards the same goal. But it is kind of a reflection in general of how society is shifting. So
yeah, and listen, man, it was a very different time, but that's what I found as well. Final question, Herman Holst, what does he smell like?
So honestly, for me, I'm still waiting to even understand at that level what any of that means. Like, I'm so sorry to be clear.
Are you saying I have to smell him myself? I don't want to get that close.
You're definitely a lot closer than me to doing that.
Hey, buddy, thank you so much for calling in, and I really appreciate that insight, man. I'm sure the listeners do too. Be well, be safe, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right, man.